Star Wars has lightsabers, Jedi, blasters, great adventure, and an epic story, but what really brings it all together is, of course, the Force. These days, there are lots of well-known Force powers from the movies, video games, books, TV shows, and everywhere else, but it didn't all just magically appear at once. Developing the Force was a process, so let's dive in and take a look at how and when every Force power was first introduced in the Star Wars original trilogy. For the sake of understanding the filmmaking strategy behind all this, let's consider the movies in release order, starting of course with A New Hope from the original trilogy. The first use of the Force might be Obi-Wan scaring away the Sand People. But our first mention of the Force is Ben Kenobi telling Luke about it.
The Force is what gives the Jedi his power. It's an energy field created by all living things. It surrounds us, it penetrates us, it binds the galaxy together.
We then cut to an Imperial meeting where Darth Vader demonstrates the Force to us for the first time. The first real use of the Force that we see is Force Choke. It's pretty dark, but it sets up a lot at once. It shows us Vader's power, along with the power of the Force, and we hear Vader himself say,
"The ability to destroy a planet is insignificant next to the power of the Force."
This also builds up from the opening introduction of Vader choking a rebel with his bare hands. This really helps the audience subconsciously make that connection between the two scenes, so that they instantly feel the strength of the Force in a very visceral, tangible way. And after that, we have Obi-Wan using the Force to mind trick some stormtroopers.
Let me see your identification.
You don't need to see his identification.
We don't need to see his identification.
These aren't the droids you're looking for.
These aren't the droids we're looking for.
He can go about his business.
You can go about your business.
Move along.
Move along. Move along.
So very early on in the movie, we've already seen the light side and the dark side compared. Vader and Obi-Wan both wanted the same thing, to manipulate someone to their way of thinking. Vader does it by using the Force to physically assault them. Obi-Wan does it by using the Force to gently suggest that they help him. It's a subtle thing, but this trend continues through all the Star Wars movies, and it really affects the viewer perception of the light side and the dark side from the very beginning, even if they don't notice it. Great storytelling at its finest. The next Force power introduced is the ability to sense things, events, and people. Vader senses Obi-Wan's arrival at the Death Star and shows us that the Force isn't just a powerful tool, it's also insightful.
I sense something, a presence I've not felt since...
We also get Obi-Wan creating an illusion to distract stormtroopers, similar to what he did to the Sand People at the start of the film. And of course, this is where things really ramp up. We see our first lightsaber battle, and Obi-Wan becomes a ghost as he disappears, and he says,
Luke, run!
This is the climax of introducing the Jedi and the Sith fully in the first film. But after that, the Force just surprisingly and suddenly kind of stops for the rest of the movie. After that, our characters only deal with the technological reality of their sci-fi universe, but nothing else really that supernatural. The only Force power left in the movie is Obi-Wan's voice telling Luke to use the Force at the end, when Luke finally uses it to destroy the Death Star.
Use the Force, Luke.
But that's it. Overall, for A New Hope, we actually have a pretty solid foundation of Force powers though, and mostly just from the first half of the movie. Episode 4 introduces illusions, Force choke, Jedi mind tricks, supernatural senses, Force ghosts, and improved dexterity. That's actually quite a lot for just the first movie, which makes it interesting to see how things played out afterwards. Which brings us to...
The Empire Strikes Back.
Right off the bat, the first Force power we see is a new one, Force Pull. This is cool for the audience, and it naturally expands on the Force's capabilities. It also shows viewers how Luke has trained between the movies. We then get to see Obi-Wan's Force Ghost in its full form, a step up from the disembodied voice in A New Hope. Notice how each new Force power introduced in the sequel is a small natural progression from the first film. It's just so well done and worth appreciating. The greatest strength of Star Wars is its world building, and these slow developments in the Force, easing the audience into it, are a great example of that. And it just keeps continuing, as the next new Force power introduced is Vader force choking an Imperial officer, but this time from far away on another ship. Does this once and done powerful addition cause a couple plot holes later? Maybe. But the reason people don't complain about it is because it stays in line with the trend and it follows the rule. It builds naturally on a previously shown Force power. It's also just cool. And then again, Luke learns to use the Force for extra physical training with Yoda, but that's just a natural extension of it helping his dexterity in aiming at the Death Star before. And likewise, Yoda lifting the X-Wing out of the water is just a natural extension of Luke's Force pull at the beginning of the movie. The cave on Dagobah is just a natural extension of Obi-Wan's illusion powers from A New Hope. And Luke sensing his friends in danger from halfway across the galaxy is just a natural extension of Vader sensing Obi-Wan on the Death Star. A New Hope does a really good job of introducing the Force and establishing what it can do, but then The Empire Strikes Back steps in to push it to its limits. It doesn't break anything or introduce anything too new or crazy, it just gives the characters room to breathe and explore in the Force that's established by the first movie. But Star Wars is Star Wars, so it doesn't stop there. The end of the movie needs drama, and drama needs stakes. What better way to increase the danger than to introduce some new Force powers for your villain? Vader blocks Han's attack with his hands, and then Force pulls away the blaster. You'd think that Vader doing this is to make him a scary threat to Han and the others, and it is, but it's also to build tension for his fight with Luke. We saw Luke slowly struggling and meditating to Force pull his lightsaber earlier, so to see Vader pulling Han's blaster away so easily sets up the expectation that Vader will completely destroy Luke when they face off. Which he does. Vader easily beats Luke back and knocks him into the carbon freezing chamber. At that point, there's nothing Luke can do to escape, so far as we know. High tension, good fight scene. But what makes it even better is how Luke does escape. They introduce Force-enhanced jumping here, which is great for a few reasons. It's something that's never been seen before by the audience, unless you count Vader's little Force hop down the stairs. So it comes with a rush of excitement at the unexpected. But at the same time, it's another natural extension of the Force as physical training, so it doesn't ruin immersion or believability. It leaves the audience thinking, wow, why didn't I think of that? Which is the best thing a movie can do for its viewers. Then they fight and fight until here's something else interesting. Remember what I said about The Empire Strikes Back pushing old Force powers to their limit, rather than just creating new ones from nothing? Well, here's the peak of that. We started with Luke struggling to Force pull his lightsaber, and we saw how easily Vader pulled Han's blaster. We saw how Yoda could lift heavy objects. So all the Force powers of the movie then culminate in this one moment where Vader unleashes everything at Luke at once. It perfectly reaches peak drama and peak tension in the fight before the final reveal.
I am your father.
Which brings us to Return of the Jedi. It's almost surprising how few Force powers this movie introduces. If A New Hope invented the Force and The Empire Strikes Back ramped it up to its maximum, then Return of the Jedi takes that maximum level Force and uses it to drive the story of Luke. Our first real introduction to the Force was Vader choking an officer, so Return of the Jedi begins with Luke choking Gamorrean guards. A New Hope had Obi-Wan mind trick stormtroopers, so Return of the Jedi has Luke mind trick Bib Fortuna. Vader force pulled Han's blaster, so Luke force pulls the guard's blaster.
Again, it's like poetry, so if they rhyme.
Our introduction to Luke in Episode 6 purposely shows him using all the different Force powers from the previous movies, so the audience instantly knows that he's now a Jedi Master and a Force to be reckoned with. Then, during the battle, it goes even one step further, and Luke deflects a blaster bolt with his lightsaber for the first time in Star Wars. But there aren't really any other new powers shown until the end. Luke uses a few old Force powers from the previous movies, and Vader throws his lightsaber if you can count that, but the movie mostly just shows how Luke can now do everything that we've seen in previous movies. So he'll be fine, right? He even defeats Vader. He's reached his peak. He's hit the limits of the Star Wars universe. The Emperor might as well be defeated right then. Except that Palpatine is so strong he's beyond anything the audience had ever seen in the Star Wars universe. Since Return of the Jedi, Force Lightning has been turned into a generic dark side power anyone can use with enough training. And honestly, that makes sense in universe, and it gives us some great moments with Dooku. There's a reason it's popular in video games, but when you consider its original place in the story, it has a huge impact. Every force power shown in the past 3 full movies was some variation on mental tricks, physical training, or moving objects. Nothing prepared audiences for Force lightning. Nothing prepared audiences for the Emperor. When Luke, the powerful Return of the Jedi Luke, with all his perfected force powers goes down, the audience feels it. It hits hard. And that's important because it makes Anakin's return to the light side hit just as hard. This is how the Force made the original trilogy great, but the story doesn't end there. I'll be releasing a sequel to this video soon about how the Force also made the prequel trilogy great, so be sure to like and subscribe to be notified of that. And as always, thanks for watching this deep dive, and may the Force be with you.